We are about to do a deep dive into the American accent. And when I say deep, I mean deep. Of course, I am from the US, and I want to share with you what truly makes up the American accent so that you have a better understanding as to why people sound the way they do. And if you are someone who is interested in learning more about accent, pronunciation, even US culture, please subscribe, turn on notifications. That way I can become your teacher. My name is Wes. The channel is Interactive English. It's all about helping you reach your fluency goals. Let's get the ball rolling by talking about the American accent in general. The standard American accent, if you will. And I want to share with you some useful tips if you are interested in copying the accent and sounding a bit more like you're from the US. So let's begin. In this lesson, we're going to talk about the standard American accent. And I really just want to break it down and talk about what are some of the different parts that make the accent what it is today. Now, the first thing I want to say is that if you are an English learner, you should not feel like you have to speak with any sort of accent. The most important thing is mutual intelligibility, that we understand each other. That being said, I do think this will help with your listening comprehension if you're watching a movie or TV show and really just get a better understanding of why people speak the way they do. And of course, we are going to practice throughout the lesson. And the first thing that I want you to keep in mind is that you need to pronounce those R's, especially at the end of words. So this is a pretty clear distinction between British English and American English, because in British English, those R's may get dropped, but not with the American accent. Father, car, water. You hear that sound at the end of those words.
I am your father.
Car for car.
Car for car.
There are some regional accents in the United States, for example, New England, in which you may hear people drop those R's. But when talking about the standard American accent, you're going to pronounce them at the end of words. So I want you to repeat these after me, and I'm going to really emphasize that R at the end. Father, car, water. Good. We're going to build on top of this as we go through the lesson. But I want you to think about that last word, water, because this brings me to the next part of the American accent, which I think is very common, and I'm talking about the flap T. So the flap T, it sounds more like a soft D, and it often occurs when the T comes between two vowel sounds, like in the word water. You don't hear a true T, you hear a flap T when I say it. Water. And this is why these two words right here with the American accent, they sound like homonyms. Metal, metal. A flap T may also occur when the T comes before a dark L, such as in the words little, bottle, rattle. You hear that slight D sound. Bottle of water. I want you to repeat after me. Bottle of water. Now, if you were saying it in the exact same way as I was, then you were linking a couple of different words. And that's the next thing that I want to talk to you about, linking. This is part of connected speech, and it's when you link the final consonant sound of one word with the beginning vowel sound of the next word. And it's almost like you're just taking that consonant sound and just moving it over to the next word or syllable. Now, linking is not specific to the American accent. Other English varieties use linking as well as other languages, but I do think it helps give the accent part of its rhythm and flow. So, bottle of water. We can link that dark L in bottle with the beginning vowel sound in of. Bottle of. Now let's add to this phrase, get a bottle of water. So I've added the words get except I didn't pronounce it like that. I said get a bottle of water. Now that final T in get, because it comes between two vowel sounds, I am going to pronounce it as, you guessed it, a flap T. And then I can link that soft D sound with the article and it's going to sound like get a bottle of water. And then we can turn this into a question. I want you to repeat after me. Can I get a bottle of water?
Excuse me, can I get a bottle of water? Can I get a bottle of water?
Can I get a bottle of water, please?
Many learners often ask me, how can I practice linking? And this is something that I think you can easily do on your own. Just take any article, really any paragraph. Go through the paragraph and identify all of those indefinite articles, as well as any preposition that begins with a vowel sound, in, on, at. If the word before ends with a consonant, well then linking may likely occur. And then just go through the paragraph, read it out loud, and focus on those phrases, and make sure that you are linking that final consonant sound with the beginning vowel sound. So let's look at, well, the very first sentence of The Hobbit, right? Very well-known, famous story. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Just with this first sentence, linking occurs 3 different times. It occurs with the very first 2 words, inna. It occurs with the next 2 words, hole in. And then it also occurs with the words lived-a. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. I cannot stress enough how common linking is in just everyday conversation. And it's really going to smooth out your speech. So let's build on that phrase that we were practicing before, and we'll create a question. Do you want to get a bottle of water? Repeat after me. Do you want to get a bottle of water? And right now, I wanna focus on wanna, and I'm emphasizing it because I want to talk about reductions, which is also very common in spoken English, especially in the United States. This is when speakers shorten, change, or remove particular sounds. And there are many different reductions, but I think gonna, wanna, have to, those are some of the more common ones. Now, even though you see them written right now, I would avoid using them in writing. I know sometimes you may see people use them in writing, like in a text message, but in general, I would just avoid them. But when it comes to spoken English, I think they're great to use because I think they'll help you develop a nice rhythm and flow. There's one thing in particular that I want you to keep in mind, and that is reductions are not really emphasized. And when I've taught them in the past, sometimes learners have trouble with this because when focusing on the reduction, people may have a tendency to stress or emphasize them. But they're not emphasized. I just want you to listen as I say the following sentences. What are you going to do tomorrow? I want to take a vacation. I have to work in the morning. So I'm not emphasizing these reductions. If anything, they're really de-emphasized and they're just going to help you run right through the sentence. Now there's one word that I really want to highlight because we often use it and you're probably not even thinking about it. And I'm talking about the word for. So this word is often reduced and that vowel sound changes to fur. It's very soft and subtle, but see if you can hear the difference. Wait here for a moment, wait here for a moment. And it's actually much easier when pronouncing that vowel sound just to say that for a moment. Again, we can reduce that word and just move quicker through the sentence. Wait here for a moment. Let's keep adding to that question. And now we have, do you want to get a bottle of water for your father? I want you to say it with me. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father? One more time. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father? The next thing that I want to talk about when it comes to the American accent that I really think that you need to master is the schwa sound. People in the United States love the schwa sound. This is just an unstressed vowel sound and it really is just going to sound like And you hear it all the time in so many different words and phrases. Even those reductions that we already talked about, that second syllable would have the schwa sound. Gonna, wanna, have to. When it comes to the schwa sound, it's important to know which vowel sounds in a word may be unstressed, because those unstressed vowels may be pronounced with the schwa sound. And at times, this is when I hear English learners make a slight mistake and they'll end up stressing a syllable with a vowel that should be unstressed and pronounced with the schwa sound. So have a listen to these words right here. Official, pencil, address, syringe. All of these words have the schwa sound and they're all different letters. And that's what I wanted to point out, is that any vowel, when it's unstressed, it may get pronounced with the schwa sound. It's unstressed And another way to think about it is that it's just a weak sound. And that's where I want to go next and talk about weak, unstressed function words. So there are two common words that may have different pronunciations depending on whether the word is stressed or unstressed. And I'm talking about the words you and to. So when unstressed, you may sound more like ya, and to may sound more like ta. And you hear that schwa sound. My suggestion is that you don't think about these words that you're always going to hear one or the other, either you or ya. Think about it more like a spectrum, and you may hear anywhere in between. Because the fact that you're not stressing these words and you're using a weaker vowel sound, that's what's changing it to more of a schwa sound. Listen to this phrase right here at the start of a question. When stressed, do you wanna? When unstressed, do you wanna? Do you wanna? Or this phrase, when stressed, to the airport. When weak and unstressed, to the airport. To the airport. Let's add these phrases to the question, there's that to create a pretty long sentence that has everything that we just talked about. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Now that we have this long question, we just need to practice. And that is the next thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Practice, because it is so important. And if you have been practicing with me throughout the lesson, I want to know. Write the word speaking in the comments. That tells me you've been practicing your speaking skills. So when it comes to practice, there are several things that you can do. Listen to native speakers and try to imitate their pronunciation. Pay close attention to the way people articulate sounds and then try to replicate them. Even if we're talking about, well, slight and subtle, weak sounds, we just talked about those words, to, you, for, being pronounced as t, ya, and fur. This is what can help you develop a more authentic, standard American accent if that happens to be one of your speaking goals. So let's practice. And because this question is so long, I am going to break it up into two different groups. And I'm going to put a slight pause between the groups. So I'll say the question, try to listen for that pause. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Hopefully you heard that slight pause after the word father, which is before that dependent clause. And I do this in order to really control the pacing. So let's practice. I am going to say that first group, and I want you to repeat after me. And then I'll say the second group, and I want you to repeat again. Are you ready? Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Now let's say the whole question. I'll say it, you repeat after me, and try to again control that pacing with that pause. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Good. Now let's say it together. And this is more like shadowing. I want you to say it in the exact same way that I am. And really what's challenging would be to see if you can keep that same speed. So let's say the question together. We'll do this 3 times. Are you ready? Let's begin. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? One more time. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Again. Do you want to get a bottle of water for your father before he goes to the airport? Excellent. Now, if you were able to say that question just like me, well, then you're using a lot of the things that we talked about in this lesson. You're pronouncing those final R's, you're pronouncing that flap T, using reductions, linking, as well as some of those weak sounds like t, ya, and fur. And remember, the most important thing is to continue practicing and really try to make time for it, because exercises like the one that we did in this lesson are really going to help you in daily conversations. Now that you have a better understanding of the standard American accent, let's have a look at some distinct regional accents. And this is fun because it really adds flavor to any English variety. And even though some of these regional accents may be a little more difficult to understand, it really does give you a sense of the country and the culture. Of course, the US is a melting pot. People move around all the time. And just because you are in one area doesn't mean everybody's going to speak with that regional accent. But if you happen to be traveling around the US, you may come across some of these different accents. And in that case, it's a good way to improve your listening skills. I want to talk to you about some different and well-known accents in the United States. And as I present these accents, I'm really going to be demonstrating the stereotypical accent. It's going to be very thick. And that's just so you can easily hear the difference between a standard American accent and a regional accent. I am actually an English teacher and I teach a lot about the American accent, but I've had many learners ask me about specific accents, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the accents you may hear if you are visiting the United States or even living in the United States. The first accent that I want to talk to you about, which is the New York accent, or as some people might say in New York, New York. So the first thing that I want to tell you about this accent is that it's common people may drop the R's in some words, especially when the R comes at the end of a word. So just listen to the difference between a standard American accent and then a New York accent dropping the R. Before, before. Here, here. Water, water. So I'm dropping the R at the end of those words, and you will also drop the R when it doesn't really come at the end, but maybe the middle of a single syllable word, like the word park. People might say park. And even the word New York, as you heard me pronounce it already, New York. Something else I want to tell you about the New York accent is that when you have the AL letter combination, it may sound like aw. And this is very slight with some words. So if I say the word talk, in the New York accent, talk. And it just gets stressed a little bit. And it may be easier to listen for if I were to give you a question. So instead of saying, what are you talking about? With the accent, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Something else I would say is that when it comes to accents in general, I think reductions of all kinds are very common. So in this sentence, I'm reducing you to ya. I'm using the schwa sound, that sound, so that it's not stressed and it would just sound like ya, which is pretty common in spoken English when you comes in the middle of a sentence or the middle of a clause. So it would sound like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This AL combination is also true in words like call. So with this one, you can really tell the difference between where your tongue is at in your mouth. Because generally, when you say call, the tongue is going to come up to the top part of your mouth at the end of the word because it's a dark L, and you'd hear that ul sound at the end. Call. But with the New York accent, it would sound like caw. And your tongue is actually laying flat at the bottom of your mouth. So again, to give you an example with a sentence, I'll call you later. I'll call you later. Once again, I'm reducing you to ya, and then I'm dropping that R in later. I'll call you later. I'll call you later. Let's move a little further to the north and we'll talk about the Boston accent. This is another well-known accent that you may hear in, well, movies, TV shows, like the movie, The Departed. Great movie.
One kid with your old man, one kid with your mother. You're upper middle class during the weeks, then you're dropping your eyes and you're hanging in the big bad Southie projects.
And the Boston accent actually shares some similarities with the New York accent. You're also going to drop the R in many words, like the word car. I think this is a word that's often used when talking about the Boston accent, and it's going to sound like car. So what kind of car you drive? Did you find your car keys? And if somebody were to say the phrase car keys, and you are an English learner, yeah, it can be difficult to catch that the R is getting dropped and somebody is talking about their car keys. Did you find your car keys? With the Boston accent, that AL, people may also pronounce it more like an aw. But I think with the Boston accent, often there's going to be an upward inflection at the end of sentences. So if I were to say, yeah, I was talking with my friends. We were talking about Star Wars. And I tried to end those sentences with that upward inflection. I like that phrase, Star Wars, dropping the R's in both of those words. Something else with the Boston accent is the OR combination may also sound like aw. And this is true even if you're talking about the conjunction or, like chicken or beef. Chicken or beef, Coke or Pepsi. Right? Hopefully you can easily hear that. And this is true when the OR combination is in individual words like divorce, divorce, force, force. May the force be with you. All right, we're talking about Star Wars. So I'm just imagining Luke Skywalker with a thick Boston accent. May the force be with you. You know, me and the other Jedis, we're going to go down to the Pocky and grab some beers. All right, that's more dialect. The Pocky is it's short for package store, which is just a liquor store where people would buy alcohol. The Pocky. So let's go in a different direction and head down south. And I want to talk to you about the Southern drawl. One of the main characteristics of the Southern drawl is that it's going to sound a little slower, and that's because people might drag out those vowel sounds. And previously, I did another lesson talking about the Southern drawl. I'll leave that up here in case you're interested. But one reason why those vowel sounds are going to get dragged out is because people will take short vowel sounds and turn them into a diphthong in which you are combining two vowel sounds. And the vowel sounds that people will combine are short vowel sounds with an off-glide schwa sound, which is that So you have the verb have, and it might sound like have. So it sounds a little longer. You can kind of hear that schwa, that sound on it. Have. Y'all have a pen? I need to write something down. So hopefully you can hear that schwa sound, have. But I also said have a pen. And that's another characteristic of the Southern drawl is the mixing of vowel sounds, especially the and the I. So instead of saying pen, it may sound like pin. Y'all have a pen. I need somebody to get me a pen. Okay, so even get might sound like get. But while we're in the South, I also want to talk to you about the Southern twang. It's a little different than that Southern drawl. So with the Southern twang, I might think of places more like the Florida Panhandle or Louisiana. And it is going to be a little different than the Southern drawl, even though they share some of the same characteristics. People are going to take short vowel sounds and turn it into a diphthong. They're going to mix some of those same vowel sounds like get and get. But I would say that the Southern drawl, it's going to sound slower, it's more rounded, and like it's coming from the back of your throat. Whereas the twang, it's going to sound more at a normal speed, perhaps a bit sharper, and really come through the nose. It's going to sound more nasally. So let me give you a sentence with the Southern drawl and the Southern twang. Just try to listen for the difference. If I were to say with the Southern drawl, I can't wait to get me one of those. And then with the twang, I can't wait to get me one of those. Okay, I was trying to say it more through my nose. Please, if you're from the South, please feel free to give me some notes down in the comments below. But just trying to make a slight distinction between the Southern drawl and the Southern twang. Because if you're spending any time in the South, you may hear a little bit of both. And now let's go to the upper Midwest, because I want to talk to you about Minnesota. Okay, and even when I say the name of the state, you should notice that long O sound, Minnesota. And this is something that's distinct about the accent. If I were just to say it with a standard American accent, Minnesota, but with the Minnesotan accent, Minnesota. And you really have this pure O sound in many words. So instead of boat, boat, soap, soap. And it sounds a little like you're just stressing that O a little bit, but you really have that pure O sound. Another thing about this accent, if somebody were to have a very thick Minnesota accent, they may pronounce words that have AG as like egg. So words like flag may sound like fleg, or bag, beg. Instead of saying put the soda in the bag, you might hear put the soda in the bag. All right, now let's go all the way out west to California. And I want to talk to you about, well, this is more of a stereotypical Californian Valley accent. Again, something you might hear in movies or TV shows. And when it comes to this accent, I actually think it's more about, well, the way people are stress timing the language. And what I would say is that people end up overstressing words that might have a slight stress and then de-stressing other words that generally get reduced. So let me give you an example. Just listen to the way I'm talking when I say the following. Today we're gonna go to the mall and I'm gonna go shopping with my friends, and it's gonna be hella cool because everybody's gonna be talking like me. Okay, so I was really trying to overstress some of those words and then de-emphasize the words that are commonly reduced, which is why you would really hear certain words and then everything else just gets run together and it sounds really fast. Something else about this accent, which is more dialect, would be the use of fillers, such as the word like. I was like, and he was like, and she was like. I used to live in California in the Bay Area, and in the morning I would ride the bus to work, and there would be high school students who would also take the same bus going to school in the morning. And I would hear some of their conversations, and it was difficult for me to follow. Every other word was the word like. And I told him that I couldn't come over and help him with his homework, and he was like, why? You promised me that you'd help me with this. It's a very important project. And after listening to this, I was thinking, what are you guys talking about? Now, to follow up on that, this is, I think, a stereotypical accent that you might find among younger generations. Perhaps kids in high school might talk more like this. But again, this is the stereotypical Valley accent. Hopefully you have a better understanding of these accents. I know that I went through them rather quickly, but I just wanted to give you a sense of what they sound like and why. Now that we've talked about different accents that you may encounter in the US, whether it be the standard accent or even some regional accents, let's focus a little bit on pronunciation. Because if you are traveling to the US, you're going to be visiting a state or even different states. So it's important to know how to pronounce them correctly as though you're from there. So let's practice pronouncing all 50 states right now. I think many of you out there may be familiar with the different states in the US, but do you know how to pronounce them all correctly? I'm from the US, secret's out. And the reason I'm telling you this is because often when I tell people I'm from the United States, people will ask where. You know, a lot of people around the world are confident with geography in the US. They're familiar with many of the different states. But from time to time, as we're talking about the US and places to visit and places that people may have been or they want to go, I may hear them talk about a state and they'll have a slight mispronunciation. Maybe they're stressing the wrong syllable or they're just saying it incorrectly. So I thought today would be a good time to talk about each state and show you how to pronounce them correctly. So I'm going to tell you the state. I am going to tell you how many syllables each word has. I will show you the phonetic spelling and the IPA version as well. So all of that means that by the end of this lesson, you will be able to say each and every state perfectly. The first state, and I'm just going to go through these alphabetically, is Alabama. It has 4 syllables and the stress is on that third syllable, that BAM. Alabama. And if you're in Alabama, you might hear people pronounce it with a rather strong southern accent, Alabama. I was actually born in Alabama. No, it's true. I was. I've lived in quite a few of these states, so I'll let you know. The next state is Alaska. It has 3 syllables. The stress is on that second syllable. That final syllable just has that schwa, Alaska. It is a beautiful state. If you love the outdoors, I highly recommend it. I worked up there for the summer. It's gorgeous. Then we have Arizona. It has 4 syllables. The stress is on that third syllable. Arizona. Arizona. Not much to say about Arizona, except it's hot. Next is Arkansas. 3 syllables, stress is on that first syllable. Arkansas. This is a common one that people have a little trouble with because, again, don't think of the spelling. Don't try and pronounce it based on the spelling. You could get all screwed up. That final syllable, saw. Arkansas. Next is the most populous state, and that is California. It has 4 syllables, stress is on that third syllable, California. Sometimes, if you're very cool, you just shorten it to 2 syllables and just say Cali, Cali. You know, I used to live in Cali. No, I've just been informed that nobody cool says that. Then we have Colorado. This state has 4 syllables. The stress is on that third syllable. Even though it's R-A-D, it's Colorado, not Rado. Colorado, the Rocky Mountains, beautiful state. I did my university there. University of Colorado, go Buffs. Next is Connecticut. This is another one where the spelling can throw off the pronunciation a little bit if you're trying to say it how it's spelled. But Connecticut has 4 syllables. The stress is on that second syllable. Connecticut. Connecticut. I also used to live in Connecticut. Now that I think about it, I've lived in quite a few of these states. Next is Delaware. Has 3 syllables. Stress is on that first syllable. Delaware. I don't know anything about Delaware. I've never been there. I've never lived there. So let's just move on to the next state. Florida. It also has 3 syllables and the stress is on that first syllable. Florida. It's the Sunshine State. My parents live there now. Known for its beautiful beaches. Florida. Next is Georgia, 2 syllables, stress on that first syllable, Georgia. Or again, if you're in the South, if you're in Georgia, people might say Georgia. I also used to live in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm sure people are like, wait, that's not how we say it in Georgia. It's just Georgia. My Southern accent's pretty bad. Then we have a state that I would like to live in, and I think many people romanticize this state. It's our only island state. Hawaii. It has 3 syllables, stresses on that second syllable, Hawaii. And again, the spelling can throw off the pronunciation a little bit, but yeah, just remember, Hawaii. Then we have Idaho. Has 3 syllables, stress is on that first syllable, Idaho. Idaho. When I think of Idaho, I think of potatoes. That's what the state's known for, Idaho potatoes. Then there's Illinois. Also 3 syllables, but the stress is on the third syllable, Illinois. Again, the spelling and the pronunciation can get a little crazy. That last syllable, that final syllable, noi, Illinois. The next state, Indiana, has 4 syllables. Stress is on that third syllable, Indiana. I think many people might be familiar with this famous movie, Indiana Jones. Not really have anything to do with the state, just the name. So let's just move on to the next one, which is Iowa. Iowa has 3 syllables and the stress is on that first syllable. Iowa. Again, Iowa spelling, pronunciation, a little crazy. Iowa. That second syllable has that schwa. Iowa. And when I think of Iowa, I think of corn because there's a lot of corn in Iowa. The next state is Kansas, the great state of Kansas. 2 syllables, stresses on that first syllable, Kansas. And what I have to say about Kansas is nothing really. I drove through there once. It was a long drive. So let's just keep driving on through to the next state, which is Kentucky. This word has 3 syllables. Stress is on that second syllable, Kentucky. Kentucky. The next state, Louisiana. It has 5 syllables. The stress is on that 4th syllable, that an, Louisiana. And when I think of Louisiana, I start thinking of food. I think of that gumbo. Louisiana, known for their gumbo. And while we're on the topic of food, our next state, Maine, has 1 syllable, just 1. Maine. Maine, I also think of food. I think of lobster when I think of Maine. And then, again, let's just keep going. Maryland. This state has 3 syllables. The stress is on that first syllable. Maryland. It's not Mary. You don't really hear that Y. It's just Maryland. Also think of food. Crab. Maryland has great crab. Then we come to Massachusetts. Not a food state. Well, actually, no, that's not true. There is New England clam chowder there, which is pretty amazing in Massachusetts. They also have 4 syllables, and the stress is on that third syllable, that chew. Massachusetts. When I think of Massachusetts, you know how people from each state have names? Like if you're from Georgia, then you're Georgian. If you're from California, then you're Californian. If you're from Massachusetts, then you're a masshole. I don't know why. I always laugh at that joke. I guess if you're from Massachusetts, you probably don't think it's funny. Then we have Michigan. The state has 3 syllables. Stress is on that first syllable, Michigan. And very close to Michigan is Minnesota. 4 syllables, stress is on that third syllable, that so. That second syllable, just the schwa, Minnesota. There's also a pretty distinct accent in Minnesota. Minnesota. Gosh, I am just terrible at accents. Minnesota. Okay, I'm just gonna, let's just move on. Then we have Mississippi. This state has 4 syllables. The stress is on that third syllable. That second one's just that schwa, Mississippi. Mississippi. After Mississippi is Missouri. This state has 3 syllables and the stress is on that second syllable, Missouri. Missouri. That S is going to have more of that Z sound, Missouri. Then we have Montana, 3 syllables, stress is on that second syllable, Montana. Montana, another beautiful state, gorgeous mountains, Montana. Near there is Nebraska. 3 syllables, stress is also on that second syllable, Nebraska. Nebraska. Not really mountains in Nebraska, sorry. Next we have Nevada. It has 3 syllables, stress is on that second syllable, Nevada. And when people think of Nevada, I think most of us think of Las Vegas, Sin City, gambling, Nevada. Next is New Hampshire. 2 words, 3 syllables. The stress is going to be on that first syllable in the second word, looking at Hampshire. Now, that last syllable, it's not Shire. It's not like Frodo in the Shire. It's sure. New Hampshire. New Hampshire. I also, for a very short time, lived in New Hampshire. Live free or die. That's what it says on the license plate. Check it out. Next, we have New Jersey. 3 syllables, stress is on, well, the first syllable of the second word, that New Jersey. New Jersey, again, a state that I think probably has a more distinct accent, Jersey. A lot of times people will just say that second word, just Jersey. Where are you from? Jersey. From Jersey. I apologize for these terrible accents, but let's just move on. Next is New Mexico. 4 syllables. Again, the stress is on that first syllable of the second word. New Mexico. Mexico. New Mexico. Don't know what to say about New Mexico, except, yes, it's very hot. Then another very well-known state, New York. 2 syllables, stress is on that second syllable, that second word, New York. Often when people think of New York, they may think of New York City first. So sometimes people need to clarify that, no, I'm talking about New York State. New York State, the state of New York. Then we have North Carolina. This state has 5 syllables, but Carolina, the stress is going to be on that, the third syllable in that word. Carolina, North Carolina, another state with a more distinct accent. All my relatives and my parents, they're from North Carolina. North Carolina. Oh, goodness. I'm going to get raked over the coals for my accent. Then we have North Dakota, 4 syllables, but Dakota has 3 syllables and the stress is on that second syllable, Dakota, North Dakota. Then Ohio. 3 syllables, stress is on that second syllable. Ohio. Ohio. Let's just keep these O's going with Oklahoma. This state has 4 syllables and the stress is on that third syllable. Oklahoma. You can hear it emphasize that. Homa. Oklahoma. I don't know why I think of cowboys. Next is Oregon. 3 syllables, stress is on that first syllable. Oregon. That last syllable sounds like gun because it's unstressed, so it's just Oregon. Then we have the great state of Pennsylvania. It has 4 syllables, stress is on that third syllable. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania. And also I used to live in Pennsylvania. Not bad. That's all I have to say. Then we have Rhode Island. 3 syllables, stress is on that, well, the first syllable of the second word, island, Rhode Island. And no, Rhode Island, it is not an island. It's just called Rhode Island. Then we have South Carolina. These words together have 5 syllables, but the stress is going to be on that second word, that Carolina, that third syllable. Again, I almost said North Carolina, but no. This is South Carolina. We're not talking about North Carolina, South Carolina. Why are there 2 Carolinas? I have no idea. Then we have South Dakota. This state has 4 syllables, but the stress is going to be on that second word, Dakota, that second syllable, Dakota, South Dakota. Moving right along, we have Tennessee. This state has 3 syllables, and the stress is on that third syllable, that final syllable, Tennessee, Tennessee. After that is Texas. 2 syllables, stress is on that first syllable, Texas. It's one of the biggest states, and people in Texas like to say everything is bigger in Texas. I don't know why they say that. It's just an expression from Texas. Then we have Utah. 2 syllables, stress is on that first syllable, Utah. After that is Vermont. Also 2 syllables, but the stress is on that second syllable, Vermont, Vermont. Next is Virginia. 3 syllables, stress is on that second syllable, Virginia, Virginia. And an expression with this state, people say Virginia's for lovers. Don't know why, not sure exactly what it means, but I guess Virginia's for lovers. Then we have Washington. 3 syllables, stress is on that first syllable, Washington. Sometimes people may confuse it with the capital, Washington, D.C., which is not a state. It is a district, District of Columbia. Next is West Virginia. This state has 4 syllables, but again, the stress in that second word, that Virginia, is on that second syllable, West Virginia. If you say it quickly, you really almost don't hear that T at the end. It almost sounds like you're saying my name, West Virginia. Then we have Wisconsin. This state has 3 syllables, and the stress is on that second syllable, that con, Wisconsin. People think of Wisconsin, they think of cheese. It is the cheese state. Finally, there is Wyoming. Also has 3 syllables, and the stress is on that second syllable, Wyoming. Wyoming. There you have it. That is the pronunciation of each state. So now that you have all this information, you can say each and every state perfectly. I want to switch gears and talk about something a little more fun and casual. So people in the US love movies. However, people in the US also love quoting movies. And that's why I want to teach you some famous and well-known movie quotes that you may hear and could possibly even use from time to time when you're having a conversation. Therefore, this is a little bit of a vocabulary and cultural lesson. Nevertheless, I want you to really think about how I'm saying these quotes. Try to copy the way that I'm saying them using the same speed, emphasis, and intonation. Famous movie quotes. So this is going to be more of a cultural lesson, a casual, fun lesson, which is why I have not shaved. I'm rocking the stubble right now. But I want to teach you some very famous movie quotes that Americans love to use. And these are quotes that have become very popular over the years, that they will be referenced in other movies and TV shows, and people may even use them in just general conversation if it's the appropriate context. So I will talk to you a little bit about that. Let's begin with our first quote, which is, "Show me the money."
Show me the money.
And this is a quote from the movie Jerry Maguire. It is a famous football movie, American football movie from 1996. And he says, "Show me the money," meaning like, how much will I be paid? Am I going to get paid for this? And how much? You need to show me the money.
What you gonna do, Jerry? Show me the money!
You had me at hello. This is another famous quote from that same movie, Jerry Maguire, and she says it to Tom Cruise, the main character, at the end of the movie. He comes in and says hello, and then starts talking about why he loves her. And then eventually she says, "Hey, just stop. You had me at hello," meaning you don't need to say all of those things. As soon as you came in here and said hello, then yes, I want to be with you.
You had me at hello. You had me at hello.
So the interesting thing about this quote is that people, you can get a little creative with it. So if somebody's talking about something and then they're trying to sell you on it, something or some idea, you could stop them and say, hey, you know, you don't have to say anymore. You had me at...
Excuse me, everyone. Sex! Now that I have your attention...
You don't have our attention.
Money!
I'm listening.
You had me at sex.
But I must warn you, this is no ordinary hammock. Its webbing is a mesh of comfort and ease.
You had me at comfort.
A lot of times I ask you guys, please subscribe to the channel. And I hope that you might be thinking, like, Wes, you don't need to say anymore. You had me at subscribe, okay? You're going to go ahead, subscribe, turn on notifications so that I can become your teacher. The next quote that I have for you is a very famous one. It's from an older movie, and that is, here's looking at you, kid. This quote is from a movie classic, Casablanca. And this is Humphrey Bogart's line. He says, here's looking at you, kid, meaning like, I'll never forget you. And he actually says it quite a few times throughout the film.
Here's looking at you, kid. Here's looking at you, kid. Here's looking at you, kid.
Then we have, fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy night. And this quote is originally from the movie All About Eve from 1950.
Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
And what's really curious about this is that the quote, it's often misquoted. And instead of saying night, people will say ride. Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. And what they're referring to is ride, like could be you're getting into a car, or even using ride talking about like a situation that you have to endure and it's going to be difficult. And somebody could say, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Fasten your seatbelt. It's gonna be a bumpy ride.
Why so serious? I really can't do a good job. Definitely not as good as Heath Ledger did.
He turns to me and he says, why so serious?
It was an amazing performance in the movie The Dark Knight when he played that role of the Joker. An incredible actor. And I think he did such a wonderful job, like really getting into that character that people really remember that line. It was a little disturbing, a little creepy. Yeah.
Why so serious?
And then there's this quote. Let's see if you recognize it. All right, all right, all right. All right, this is, I'm trying to do my southern accent a little bit. So this quote comes from the movie Dazed and Confused. I love this movie. The movie came out in 1993, but it's about high school kids in the 70s. And Matthew McConaughey, very famous actor, is the one who says this line.
All right, all right, all right.
And even though he's been in so many different movies, this quote is probably what he's most famous for. This is what people remember him saying. All right, all right, all right.
Whatever it is we look up to, whatever it is we look forward to, and whoever it is we're chasing, to that I say amen. To that I say all right, all right, all right.
And then we have just keep swimming, all right? And I say it like that with that fist pump because it means never give up. You have to keep going. Just keep swimming. This quote comes from the film Finding Nemo. It came out in 2003, and it's about a clownfish who is searching for his lost son, Nemo. And he has to keep looking, just keep swimming.
I don't want to know what you got to do.
Just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, swimming, swimming.
And this is actually one of the most famous movie quotes of the 21st century because it has that really important message. Never give up, just keep swimming.
Just keep swimming! Keep swimming! You're doing great, son!
Are you not entertained? I'm trying to imitate Russell Crowe.
Are you not entertained?
It's from the movie Gladiator. It came out in the year 2000. And he says this, are you not entertained? Like trying to shame the audience because this film, Gladiator, it's loosely based on true events that happened within the Roman Empire, and he would fight for the audience's entertainment, and he's a little upset when he says this.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And to follow up on that, one way I think this lesson it can be useful if you want to practice and say these quotes in the exact same way. Shadowing, I think, can really help your speaking fluency because you're trying to say it in the exact same way. Same speed, same intonation, same emphasis, and really capture that rhythm and flow. And I think shadowing can be very useful, and with these movie quotes, it can be a lot of fun as well. Here's a good quote if you want to practice shadowing and say it, "My precious." You have to say it like that, "My precious." All right? This quote is from the movie Lord of the Rings, and the first movie, it's a trilogy, it came out in 2001, and it's actually based on the fantasy books by J.R.R. Tolkien. Precious. But the movies brought the story to life in a new and unique way, and people really remember this quote, "My precious." Precious. And it's become so popular that it's often referenced in other movies and TV shows.
My precious.
My awesome cool movie. My precious.
Here is another famous quote from Lord of the Rings. "You shall not pass." All right. Again, I'm trying to say it in the same way, but I probably don't sound exactly like Gandalf.
You shall not pass!
And once again, I don't know what it is about Lord of the Rings, but this is another quote that is often referenced in other movies and TV shows.
You shall not pass! You shall not pass!
You ain't heard nothing yet. This is the popular catchphrase from the 1927 musical drama, The Jazz Singer.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you. You ain't heard nothing.
And over the years, it kind of changed a little bit. And I think more commonly today, people will say, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And this actually comes from the 1974 song by Bachman Turner Overdrive. That's the title of the song, "You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet."
But baby, you just ain't seen nothing yet.
I think if people are going to say one of these, they will use seen. You ain't seen nothing yet. It means however impressive something may seem, it's going to be overshadowed by what will come. So I could say like, wow, you think these video lessons are impressive and amazing? Well, you ain't seen nothing yet. Just wait for what is to come. That's another reason why you should subscribe. I'll have what she's having. This is a quote from the movie When Harry Met Sally from 1989. And, well, to give you some context, the two main characters are sitting in the restaurant, Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, and she's pretending to fake an orgasm.
Oh, God. Oh.
And then some other person in the restaurant, it's not even a main character, says, "I'll have what she's having," as though it's the food at the restaurant or the meal that's making her feel this way.
I'll have what she's having.
And even though this quote is said by like some real secondary character, it's become so popular and it's still referenced in movies and TV shows today.
I'll have what she's having.
I'll have what she's having.
I'll have what she's having.
If you build it, he will come. And I say it like this because it's really like a voice that the main character is hearing in the movie Field of Dreams, which is also from 1989. So Kevin Costner, he hears this voice. If you build it, he will come. If you build it, he will come. It's a great example of the first conditional, that you have this condition, if you build it, and then the result in the future, he will come. And spoiler, it's talking about building a baseball field and then the players will come. Like maybe your father will return. All right, sorry if I spoiled it for you. The movie, it's old. You've had plenty of time to watch it. If you build it, he will come.
All right, that's it. Huh? Who the...
Hopefully you have learned some new quotes that you can now listen for if you're watching a TV show or movie. I told you these quotes are so popular, they will be referenced from time to time. All right, all right, all right. Let's keep going with the pronunciation of some famous and well-known American brands. And I really want to go into detail and talk about how Americans pronounce these names, because sometimes the spelling and the pronunciation don't always match, or perhaps people are pronouncing them using different parts of connected speech. Either way, I want to teach you how to pronounce these brand names just like an American. Let's begin. 20 famous and well-known American brands, and yes, I am going to give you the American pronunciation because I am from the United States. So let's begin with our first brand, which is Levi's. It's a very famous clothing brand. They make jeans, and both of the vowel sounds, they're long vowel sounds. Levi's. Sometimes I've heard people say Levi's, but just remember it's a long E. Levi's. Then we have Bose. They make headphones and speakers, and that S, yes, it is more of a Z sound. Bose. Bose. And then we have, this is one of my favorites, In-N-Out Burger. And with this one, it's if you've been to California, you'll know what I'm talking about. People are crazy for In-N-Out Burger. And I've included it even though you say it like it's spelled, In-N-Out Burger. But it's a great example of linking because people will typically say this quickly, In-N-Out Burger. So that final consonant sound is going to get linked with that starting vowel sound. Just listen, In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger. You can say it with me. In-N-Out Burger. One more time. In-N-Out Burger. And then we can say it quickly. In-N-Out Burger. That's how most people are going to pronounce it. And if you were practicing with me, let me know by hitting that like button. I always love knowing that people are interacting with these lessons. The next brand, which is, well, very, very famous, Nike. You've probably heard of this company before. They make shoes. But Nike has 2 syllables. In the past, I've heard people say Nike with just 1 syllable, but it has 2 syllables named after the Greek goddess of victory, Nike. The next brand is Costco. Okay, it's a very famous retail store. You can find these all over the world. And the reason why I've included it is because it's a great example of elision. Elision is when certain sounds or syllables are removed. So in this case, the T is removed. You're not gonna pronounce that T. Costco. And the reason for that is that when the T comes between 2 consonant sounds, it may elide and it just gets removed. Costco. Costco. Another example of elision, another pretty well-known American brand, Old Navy. In this case, the D is going to get removed because once again, it comes between 2 consonant sounds. Old Navy. Old Navy. And then just to keep going with elision, this is one of my favorite brands, especially in the morning, Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So this is a cereal that people will eat for breakfast. The word cinnamon on its own can be a little challenging. It has 3 syllables. The stress is on the first syllable. The second and third syllable have that schwa sound. It's an unstressed vowel sound. It just sounds like cinnamon, cinnamon. And then continuing with elision, the final T in toast, it's going to go away because it comes between 2 consonant sounds. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Cinnamon Toast Crunch. If you have not tried it already, I recommend Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And then, well, another brand that I enjoy, I would also recommend is Ben & Jerry's. Okay, they make ice cream. And the reason why I've included this one is because you see that sign for and. Ben and Jerry's. But nobody's going to pronounce and. They're going to reduce it and just say N. Ben & Jerry's. And we can also link this the same way we did with In-N-Out, Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's. Another example of a famous brand that has that sign for and, Black & Decker. And this company makes power tools that you can use around the home. And once again, you're not going to say and, you're going to reduce it to just N, Black & Decker. Black & Decker. Next, Reese's Pieces. It's a well-known candy, and both of those words end in "sizz." Reese's Pieces. And it can be a fun little tongue twister if you're trying to say it quickly. Reese's Pieces, Reese's Pieces. Then we have Doritos. Doritos, it's a well-known brand of chips, and I really don't know how to describe Doritos. All I can tell you is that my favorite flavor is Cool Ranch. But the reason why I've included it is because that T in Doritos, I am going to pronounce it with a flap T, which is very common in the United States. So when the T comes between two vowel sounds, you're going to use a flap T. It sounds like a soft D. Doritos. Doritos. You also hear the flap T in other brands of chips like Cheetos. You hear that soft D. Cheetos. I really like Cheetos, except that you get cheese stuck on your fingers. And then you hear the flap T in Tostitos. That second T, I'm going to use a flap T. It comes between two vowels. Tostitos. And, well, let's keep going with some more examples of the flap T. Gatorade. This is a well-known, I guess you could say it's like an athletic drink. That's at least, well, that's how they try to market themselves. But Gatorade, that T, I'm going to use a flap T. And that second syllable, I'm going to use the schwa, that sound. Gatorade. Gatorade. And the same goes for this next brand, Caterpillar. I'm not talking about the insect, even though the pronunciation is the same. Caterpillar is well known for making machinery, and again, that T, I'm going to use a flap T, and that second syllable has that schwa. Caterpillar. Caterpillar. Let's switch gears and talk about medicine. So Tylenol is a very famous brand. They make medicine for headaches or to reduce fevers. And I think it's very useful because people may not say, hey, do you have something for my headache? They may ask for it by brand name and say, hey, do you have any Tylenol? And this one, the spelling and the pronunciation are not too similar. That Y is pronounced with a long I sound, Ty. And then the second syllable has the schwa, Tylenol. Tylenol. And then there's Benadryl. Benadryl is an antihistamine for allergies. So again, if I have allergies, I might just ask and say, hey, does anybody have any Benadryl? And with this one, again, that second syllable has the schwa, Benadryl. And the Y is actually going to have a short I sound this time, Benadryl. Benadryl. So with Tylenol, that Y has the long I. With Benadryl, you have that short I sound. Whirlpool. This is a company that makes home appliances like washing machines, and it's a great example of the dark L. Both of those L's are dark L's in which your tongue's going to come up to the top part of your mouth, and you're not going to release it. Whirlpool. So that RL combination can be tricky in many other words as well. But let's practice this, and you should feel your tongue getting pulled up 2 times for that dark L. Whirlpool. 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 And then there's Charmin. Charmin makes paper towels, toilet paper. And I don't know why, but that CH, it's not a ch sound. It's going to be pronounced like an SH. Sh. Charmin. And that final syllable has that schwa, Charmin, Charmin. And then we have Listerine. It's a well-known brand mouthwash. And the one thing I want to say about this is that R-I-N-E, it's not pronounced Rhine. It's pronounced with that long E, Listerine, Listerine. We've covered a lot of things in this lesson, and I hope that you have a better understanding of the American accent. And if this is one of your speaking goals, I would recommend that you keep getting exposure to the language. You can practice using shadowing, trying to say things in the exact same way. You can do it. Keep at it. Just keep swimming. All right, if you enjoyed this lesson and learned something new, you can let me know by hitting that like button. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. So long.